Good evening, hello and welcome to the News Today, your primetime destination newsmakers talking points tonight. We have a 2-hour special because there's lots happening in India and the world. This is the news without the noise. Let's get you our big talking point. Donald Trump's dangerous duplicity. Talks with Modi, lunch with Munir. Is America simply playing both India and Pakistan to strike a deal? Also, the AI 171 crash mystery has deepened. We'll have more on that. And we'll tell you all that's happening on the Iran-Israel war front. As I said, we have lots ahead on the show. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump hold a 35-minute phone conversation. India says it has and never will accept mediation on tensions with Pak. But after the call, Trump does a U-turn again, repeats his ceasefire claim, says, I stopped the war. With an eye on Iran, Donald Trump set to host Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir for lunch, says Munir was influential in stopping conflict with India from the Pakistan side. Tehran's internal security headquarters destroyed, claims Israel. Reports say Iran preparing missiles for possible retaliatory strikes on US bases. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei's big warning to the US. The Ayatollah says irreparable damage to the United States if it intervenes, calls Trump's kill Khamenei threat absurd rhetoric. A thaw in India-Canada ties after a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and his Canadian counterpart Carney. Both sides agreed to reappoint high commissioners, resume regular services for citizens and businesses. New details in the crashed Air India flight probe. The plane's engine was replaced 3 months ago. Dreamliner had last undergone a detailed maintenance check in June 2023. Now over Tamil Nadu's Kiladi excavation report believed to offer critical insights into an ancient Tamil civilization. Archaeologists who drafted the report transferred. DMK protest demand center recognize the findings. Amul opens kiosks at Bengaluru's metro stations. BJP and JDS slam Siddaramaiah government, accuse Congress of failing to promote Karnataka-run brand Nandini. Reliance Infrastructure partners with Dassault Aviation to make Falcon 2000 business jets in India. First made in India jets expected by 2028 for corporate and military use. But our top story tonight, Donald Trump has repeated his ceasefire claim yet again, despite a 35-minute phone call with Prime Minister Modi. That's right, Donald Trump has said, I stopped the India-Pakistan war. He said this now for the 14th time. This comes ahead of his meeting with the Pakistani General Asim Munir over lunch. Munir, according to Trump, stopped the war from Pakistan's side. As I said, Trump is set to host the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir. But all of this coming in a way ahead of that meet luncheon and after a phone call between the US President and the Indian Prime Minister, where India claimed it had told the US President very clearly that it was Pakistan that wanted the ceasefire and had emphasized that India would not tolerate any mediation on a dispute with Pakistan. So Donald Trump once again embarrassing the Modi government. Listen in to what the US President said a short while ago at the White House.
Well, I stopped a war between Pakistan. I love Pakistan. I think Modi is a fantastic man. I spoke to him last night. We're going to make a trade deal with Modi of India. But I stopped the war between Pakistan and India. This man was extremely influential in stopping it from the Pakistan side, Modi from the India side, and others. And they were going at it, and they're both nuclear countries. I got it stopped. I don't think I had one story. Did I have one story written about it? I stopped a war between two major nations, major nuclear nations. I don't think I had a story written about it, but that's okay. You know why? The people know. The people know. Did anybody write that story about the war? Did anybody? Did you write it?
We wrote one.
We all wrote it.
Did you write it?
Just one more.
You wrote it.
So there you have Donald Trump once again claiming, I stopped the war. Pranay Upadhyay, our foreign editor here, joins me in Delhi, and Rohit Sharma is on the ground in Washington, D.C. Let me come to you, Rohit, first there. We'll go to Rohit in a moment, but I want to come to you, Pranay. Pranay, what is the MEA making out of this statement? MEA issues a detailed record of what they claimed happened in that phone conversation, claiming India emphasized to Donald Trump that they would not accept mediation, and appeared to suggest that India was pushed into a ceasefire because Pakistan wanted one. And here goes Donald Trump claiming, I stopped the war. Hasn't this been embarrassing in a way for the ministry?
Not an embarrassment, Rajdeep, because if you would notice that this is not for the first time Government of India or MEA has said this thing. Foreign Secretary only gave the narration about the phone call between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump. This is the first leadership level contact between the two countries. But if you see this, the stated position of Ministry of External Affairs, the spokesperson of Ministry of External Affairs has said it even in previous press conferences that there is no mediation offered, there was no quid pro quo. Not even the mention about the word trade as far as the contact between United States and India is concerned vis-a-vis the Operation Sindoor and for the cessation of firing between India and Pakistan, because that was agreed between India and Pakistan through the DGMO level talks. Not even that, the Foreign Minister of India, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar also said the same thing. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not say a new thing or what has been told to media by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in today's
Yeah, but Donald Trump is challenging the Indian narrative effectively. Every time Donald Trump says, I stopped the war, he's challenging what India is claiming.
Yeah, you're right, but this is not for the first time. As you rightly mentioned, this is for the 15th time. But you could also make out, Rajdeep, when the President of the United States standing on the South Lawns of the White House and asking the media reporters that, did you write about it? Did you write this thing? He asked this question multiple times. So clearly you can make out that he's asking for the credit. He's looking for a byline. And as far as the byline for his foreign policy achievements are concerned, this is the only thing he has to show, because he also mentions that, he failed, he could not stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. He could not find a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and now he's in a position to have joining the Israeli campaign against Iran. So clearly this is what he's looking as an achievement to find some credit.
I take your point. That's an interesting way to put it. Donald Trump is looking for a byline, a headline. Rohit Sharma, you're joining us from Washington, D.C., where in a short while from now, Donald Trump will be hosting General Asim Munir, Field Marshal of Pakistan, for lunch. It seems, at least from a distance, that Donald Trump wants to be seen as some kind of a deal maker without being seen to take sides either for India or for Pakistan, simply strike deals with both sides. Is that the impression in Washington as well?
Exactly, Rajdeep. I think, the buzzword in the Beltway here in Washington, D.C. is deal. I think that's what even President has said multiple times, using multiple platforms, that, he's ready to make a deal with anybody and everybody. So it is going to be very closely watched as what the outcome of this meeting could mean. Remember, this is historic. He's not a dictator yet, Mr. Munir. Still chief of staff. The last two people, head of state, dictators who met a sitting US president were Mr. Yahya Khan in the 70s and Musharraf. So it kind of also speaks to the fact that the Americans know who they are dealing with, who controls the government in Pakistan. They have a sitting prime minister in Pakistan who was not invited as a state, as the head of the state for this meeting. So I think there is going to be some sort of arrangement, and we do not know what that is, and everybody is guessing what that could mean. Is it going to be a critical minerals deal? Is it going to be bases? Is it going to be more funding? We have to wait and watch what that means.
Right.
But clearly, Donald Trump, is elevating Pakistan back to where it was in the 90s.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Rohit Sharma, Pankaj Upadhyay for joining me there on that story that's breaking at the moment. Donald Trump once again grabbing all the headlines, effectively wanting to claim credit, he says, for the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Now, all of that is very well. The truth of the matter is, from the Russia-Ukraine war to the rising tensions between Iran and Israel, Donald Trump has repeatedly promised to be a peacemaker. But the truth is, he hasn't been able to stop wars. In fact, Trump's peacemaker image is now appearing increasingly hollow in the face of escalating global tensions. What do we then make out of what Donald Trump is up to, whether with India, Pakistan, or indeed between Israel and Iran? Take a look at this report.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier.
He says he hates wars. He claims he wants peace. He believes he alone can fix it. But time and again, Donald Trump seems to promise peace only to turn around and play from both sides. A day after he exited the G7 summit prematurely, Donald Trump was at the receiving end of a hard-hitting phone call from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A 35-minute telephonic conversation which demolished Trump's repeated claims of brokering the Indo-Pakistan truce after Operation Sindoor. Modi told Trump that India has opted for ceasefire only after Pak begged for it.
सैन्य कार्रवाई रोकने की बात सीधे भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच दोनों सेनाओं की एग्जिस्टिंग चैनल्स के माध्यम से हुई थी और पाकिस्तान के ही आग्रह पर हुई थी। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने जोर देकर कहा कि भारत ने न तो कभी मध्यस्थता स्वीकार की थी, न करता है और न ही कभी करेगा।
But Donald's doublespeak couldn't be more evident. At a time when Donald Trump was listening to Prime Minister's tough talk over the phone, he was also hosting Asim Munir, Pakistan's hawkish general responsible for triggering cross-border terror and scheduled to have a special lunch with the president at the White House. Trump even had the temerity to invite Prime Minister Modi to stop over at the White House while returning from the G7 summit, all while Munir was still around. A diplomatic landmine that the Prime Minister smartly avoided.
पूर्व निर्धारित कार्यक्रमों के कारण प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने अपनी असमर्थता व्यक्त की। दोनों लीडर्स ने तब तय किया कि वे निकट भविष्य में मिलने का प्रयास करेंगे।
Let's now focus on the reason Trump left the G7 summit early to begin with. Initially, the US president had claimed he would de-escalate with Iran. But even as he urged calm, he quietly cleared Israeli operations and even considered supplying bunker-busting bombs to Tel Aviv. So again, whose side is America on? And then came Ukraine.
I will prevent, and very easily, World War III, very easily. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. And it will take me no longer than one day.
After famously claiming that he'll end Russia's invasion in 24 hours,
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You
Don't,
will not
you
have
gotta,
war.
don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to
and then infamously getting into a spat with Ukrainian President Zelensky, Trump was confident on getting Vladimir Putin, with whom he is claimed to have great relations, agree to a deal with Ukraine. The reality, Ukraine said no, Russia said no, and Trump's plan fell apart. So what exactly is Trump's game plan? Is the US a peacemaker or a power broker? Because from New Delhi to Kyiv, from Tel Aviv to Tehran, there's one pattern emerging. No permanent allies, no permanent enemies. Only deals that serve Trump. He wanted the Nobel Peace Prize, but all he's really delivered is noise and not neutrality, and a world that's still at war. Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's ask the question that story raises. What really is Donald Trump's game plan? Is America doing what America often does, play all sides and then work in its own self-interest? What really is the US's role in a new world order? Has Trump miserably failed in his promise to end wars? In fact, has allowed more wars to take place under his watch. Joining me now, Vivek Kaju, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Manoj Joshi, distinguished fellow at ORF and a senior journalist. And I'm also joined by David K. Johnston, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist and author who's tracked Donald Trump very closely. I appreciate all my guests joining me on the show tonight. I want to actually come first to my guests from America because you can give us an insight into this man called Donald Trump, David. What is he up to? I mean, he speaks at times almost as if he believes that he can settle every war in the world. But as we are finding, Donald, as some say, chickens out in the end. What are we to make out of Donald Trump?
Well, Rajdeep, Donald has a long history of creating his own reality. He just makes stuff up. You know, he claims, for example, to be the world's greatest expert on 22 different subjects. And that's not possible. And in fact, he knows nothing about many of those subjects. He just makes stuff up. And the people who regard him as a demigod, and America is full of internet messages and images of him suggesting that God appointed Donald Trump to save America and the world. He's bought into that stuff. He believes he has these magical powers. And bluntly, he's mentally ill. He always has been. And I've known him for almost 40 years.
So you're saying Trump is creating his own alternate reality. Given what you've just heard, Vivek Kaju, how are we to interpret the events of the last 24 hours? India claims that Narendra Modi gave Donald Trump a kind of reality check on what happened between India and Pakistan. Interestingly, in Hindi, not in English, by the Foreign Secretary, almost to a domestic audience. And there goes Donald Trump once again saying, I stopped the war.
Look, whatever may be Donald Trump's difficulties and infirmities of mind, the fact is that he is the President of the United States, Rajdeep. He holds the world's most powerful executive office. And the world has no other alternative but to deal with. And that includes India. So, as far as Mr. Modi is concerned, Mr. Modi may say whatever he wishes to say to Donald Trump at this stage, but Donald Trump will continue to say what he believes in, and he will repeat that ad nauseum, as you yourself have said. So, as far as we are concerned, I think the mature diplomatic way of handling it is to say our piece, say our version, and leave it at that. I would not sweat at all at whatever Donald Trump has said. I would say my thing.
You know, you may not sweat over that, but the headline once again is, I stopped the war. India claims that we, in a way, drew a line in the sand in that phone conversation. And I repeat, Mr. Kaju, the Foreign Secretary then briefed people in Hindi, almost as if this was to cater to domestic audiences rather than a global audience. It's almost as if we've given up on Donald Trump when it comes to his claim for the 15th time that I stopped the war.
Look, Rajdeep, let me try to, please permit me 1 minute on this. Whenever there are tensions, especially there are tensions and there's action, armed action between two nuclear powers or between two important states, there is great concern in the world and conversations between leaders start taking place, between countries begin to take place. Those conversations will carry on. The question is, if those conversations have been determinant in, say, in India's case, have been determinant in India taking a decision. India has a tradition of strategic autonomy and of taking its own decisions. It may hear everyone, but at the end of the day, it decides for itself. And in this particular case, the fact is that on the morning of the 10th, the Indian Air Force demonstrated its ability to strike all Pakistani air bases and those strikes were very effective. Those strikes led the Pakistani DGMO to seek his Indian counterpart and ask that there be a ceasefire. Now, right from the beginning, our position was that we were only striking terrorist targets. So when the Pakistanis said, let there be a ceasefire, we responded positively. So if Donald Trump interprets these conversations that were taking place as being determinant, he is simply wrong. But
Okay.
if he wishes, my last sentence, if he wishes
Now then,
to
why don't we say
continue
that
with his
openly?
delusion,
Mr.
no, look,
Kaju, why don't we say that Donald Trump is not telling the truth or is being economical with the truth? Why
no,
is
no,
that
all
diplomatic
that,
niceties?
no, no. It's not a question of diplomatic niceties. If the holder of the world's most powerful office is wanting to be delusional, it is diplomatically best to allow him to be delusional and to continue to say what he wishes. As long as you place on record what is the truth according to you.
Okay.
That is
Got
that is the mature diplomatic way of handling the situation. And of course, there's always a domestic angle to it. So today, Vikram Misri came out and spoke in good, clear. His articulation in Hindi was perfect, and he put forward his viewpoint, and he said that the Prime Minister conveyed this to Donald Trump, and we should leave it at that and not bother about it one bit. What Donald Trump continues to say. Our
Okay,
concern should.
let
Well,
me
last
bring in.
point.
Yes, yeah,
Last
complete.
point.
Yes.
I think our concern must shift from this to the more important thing of why is he receiving Asim Munir and hosting him to lunch? What does that connote for South Asia and for India-America relations and for uh,
I'll
also
come to
in
that
the
in a moment.
context
Mr.
of
Kaju, let me come to
Israel-Iran?
that in a moment. Let me get Manoj Joshi in. Manoj Joshi, take off from where Mr. Kaju let out. 35-minute phone call with Prime Minister Modi, but a luncheon for the Pakistani Field Marshal. And as Rohit Sharma, my correspondent from Washington, was pointing out, Yahya Khan and Musharraf were actually heads of state of Pakistan when they were entertained in the White House. Here is someone who's not even the head of state, just about 8 weeks after Pahalgam, is being given a luncheon by the US president, someone who widely is believed to be the one who has been leading this drive to sponsor terror against India. What's the message there?
Well, I think this is a somewhat complicated thing in the sense that what we are seeing, as far as Mr. Trump is concerned, first of all, his repeated statements on the ceasefire issue. Let's be very clear. Trump is not an unintelligent man. Whatever, he may be a narcissist or whatever it is, he's not unintelligent. He's saying what he's saying. Either he believes in it or he's saying it for some effect. Now, as far as Munir is concerned, there are several factors in play. I think one of the important factors is the immediate one, which is the Israel-Iran war. I think what the United States is hoping that Pakistan truly stays neutral in this. You know, in between there was that news that Pakistan said we'll nuke Israel if Israel
That was denied by Islamabad.
Correct, that is denied. But the point here is that the entire western border of Iran is with Pakistan, and that's a troubled border. And having Pakistan as a neutral there, don't forget that Pakistan had actually carried out airstrikes in Iran sometimes back. So the United States is trying to ensure Pakistan is neutral or is on its side. Number two, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. It has trained personnel who can make nuclear weapons. They also have a history of clandestine activity with regard to proliferation. I think the United States also, as a matter of abundant caution, wants to ensure that there is no crossover from Pakistani radical scientists or whatever it is into Iran to do that, what should I say, the final screwdriver away from, that the Iranian program is a screwdriver away from making a bomb. Now, the Pakistanis could be a help there. So they want to ensure that that will not happen. And the third thing is, I think the rise of China, China's role in Afghanistan, the role that is playing in Afghanistan, the United States wants to neutralize that effect and is therefore strongly backing Pakistan. And when you say backing Pakistan, you are really have to back the Pakistan army, because after jailing the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, it's the army which is really in control, not Mr. Shehbaz Sharif.
That's very clear, but that the army is in control, not Shehbaz Sharif. Vivek Kaju, you want to add to that here is India, poised to become the fourth largest economy in the world, about to do a potential trade deal with the United States, and there is Pakistan, which the United States again sees as a potential ally, possibly even, as Manoj Joshi pointed out, in the Israel-Iran war. Strategic ally, an important place for the United States to have a deeper relationship with. Is that again something we should simply be able to live with? Every country looking at its own self-interest at the moment.
Why at the moment? Always. The diplomatic game is always about self-interest and national interest, Rajdeep, as you know. But let's proceed on this particular issue. I think it's quite clear that the United States is wanting to, quote unquote, repair its relationship with Pakistan and to get in some balance between its relationship with India and its relationship with Pakistan. That's becoming more and more abundantly clear. This lunch, this extraordinary lunch, is also evidence of that fact. But
why are you calling it an extraordinary lunch? Why are you calling this lunch an extraordinary lunch?
Because the President of the United States does not host an army chief. At most, it will be the Secretary of Defense that will host an army chief. At most. Otherwise, it would be the Secretary of the Army or the Joint Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So therefore, if the President is hosting a lunch, it's truly extraordinary. Second, I for one believe that the Pakistanis don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. No one in the Islamic world wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon, except for Iran's proxies, which at the moment are in a very poor condition. Now, therefore, I'm asking myself, why are these great overtures being made, these great gestures to our assembly? And I can only think that Trump has decided that he will have a go at the Iranian nuclear facilities. But I don't think anyone in America or elsewhere is sure about the consequences of that action. Now, there's also a talk about regime change. I don't know what that means, because I do not see any political force in Iran at the moment which can step in should the Vilayat-e-Faqih, the present system, falls. Therefore, I would think that Asim Munir is important just in case, and this might be wild speculation on my part, but I think one should ponder over this. Just in case the Americans need boots on the ground, which are under their quote-unquote control, who can provide them boots on the ground except the Pakistan army? That is the play, to my mind, which is on at the moment. And Asim Munir is being quoted for this.
As a result, either way, what it means is the word you use, we have a situation where the US president is having an extraordinary lunch with the Pakistan army chief. Now, it could be why the US needs Pakistan against Iran, how the US will use Pakistan against Iran if this war there escalates. And I just want to put out how Donald Trump has acted, ending wars or prolonging them. David, I'm coming to you in a moment on that. Russia-Ukraine war, He promised to end the war in 24 hours, push for ceasefire talks. What happened in the end? Ukraine stood firm. Putin's attacks intensified. No ceasefire, no peace. The conflict continues between Russia and Ukraine. Then you have Israel and Hamas. Again, you had a situation where Donald Trump vowed to end Middle East wars, floated a Gaza resort plan. Fighting continues. In fact, it's intensified and no truce in sight. Fighting, or rather bombing of Gaza, continues. Israel-Iran escalation. He tried to strike a deal with Iran. Israel refused to toe the US line. No deal, full-fledged conflict on. David, makes sense then, once again, of Donald Trump. Is he a peacemaker, or is he someone now who wants to, in a way, establish American hegemony, even in the Middle East, possibly using Israel as his ally in it? David? Okay, I'm going to try and see if we can get David on that. But Manoj Joshi, what do you make out of Donald Trump? Is he playing peacemaker now, or is he someone who actually is reveling in what's happening even between Israel and Iran, because it gives the US a chance to play a greater role?
Well, Rajdeep, one important thing is Trump has this issue of friends. For example, he sees Putin as a friend. So in his whole approach towards the Ukraine-Russia conflict, he has been leaning towards Russia in a fairly obvious manner. Now, in the case of Israel, he has been giving Israel an extremely long rope, in the sense the whole Gaza thing would have ended had the Biden presidency been there, or had it continued. But Netanyahu, though Trump doesn't have a particularly good relationship with Netanyahu, Trump has been extremely friendly to Israel. He was the guy who transferred the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in his first term. So my point is, out here, Trump is a person who has certain fixed beliefs, and he goes by them. So in his fixed belief system, Russia is a great power. Putin is a good guy. Zelensky is a guy who's trying to take the Americans for a ride. Likewise, in the case of Hamas, Hamas are terrorists. Israelis are good guys. But you have a situation where Israel has started 2 wars and does not seem to be able to finish them without American help. Now, this is something which the Americans have to ask themselves, and that is why you're seeing that even the MAGA movement is getting split on this issue, where Trump is carrying out his personal agenda, his personal proclivities are coming to the fore.
Let me ask you, David, is the Trump coalition splitting apart on this Israel-Iran war, as some are making it out to be, the whole MAGA coalition? Or is Donald Trump simply someone who does what Donald Trump wakes up every morning and thinks about, and therefore he doesn't even care what some of his aides and advisors are telling him at the moment?
Well, both of those are true. Donald only thinks about Donald. He doesn't think about anybody else. You are not a human being. You're an object, either one to be won over and be useful to him, or one to be suppressed and defeated. But there are clear fissures arising in the United States over several issues. Remember, Trump said he would end the war with Ukraine in 1 day. Obviously hasn't happened. Nothing's going anywhere with Gaza, and the conditions are getting worse. His crazy claim that he brought an end to the latest war between, or battles between India and Pakistan. In addition, domestically, at least 5 million people turned out in protests in America last Saturday after this grabbing of people off the street by federal agents, not with uniforms, with their faces covered, and without badges. In some cases, leaving children in cars as they took the parents away to be deported. So there's opposition arising, but he's still America's dictator. He just hasn't fully consolidated his power.
You're calling him America's dictator. Do you
Oh, yeah.
believe, and I'll have more on this later tonight, because we have some special guests joining us from the United States who worked in the US military. Do you believe Donald Trump, given your experience of him, will plunge into this war in Iran?
At the moment, it certainly looks like he's going to do so. And only, of course, Congress can declare war, not that Donald cares that there are limits on his presidency. I mean, he has said in his first term, I have an Article 2 of the US Constitution. I have an Article 2 that says I can do anything I want. It says nothing of the sort, but Donald believes that it says that. He believes he's all powerful. And I've been warning people since at least 2011 that Donald, if he got to the White House, would be America's first dictator. And what he's doing now is simply trying to consolidate his power. He's removed various generals, inspectors general who look for corruption in the agencies. He has defied court orders, although backed down in a few cases later on. And he has asserted that everything he does is lawful and proper because he's trying to save the country. That's a dictator. He just doesn't have 100% solid control yet, but he's working on that, Rajdeep. He's working on it every day.
Just 30 seconds that I have, Vivek Kaju, is therefore Donald Trump, given what you've seen happening over the last few days, especially in the last 24 hours, good or bad for India?
I don't look at people in office like Donald Trump as good and bad for India. I believe that diplomacy requires that people like Donald Trump are used to promote and safeguard India's national interest. There is nothing good or bad in diplomacy. Those are terms of a moral nature, and the international world, the international community, the world we live in is amoral. And it is this amoral world that one has to navigate. But I would say one thing, at this juncture, with the Israelis having attacked, if I may shift to this, because I think that is the most crucial point in the world today. The Israelis have attacked nuclear facilities in Iran. They can't finish the job themselves. If Donald Trump and America and the rest, Europe, even China and Russia, if I may say so, want that Iran should not get a nuclear weapon, then I think the first step, there are other dimensions not in their control, but this would be in their control, is to get to the nuclear facilities of Iran, which Israel can't get to, and only the Americans can. So as of now, I don't see that whatever may be the split in MAGA, etc., I don't see an alternative for Donald Trump to get him and bomb.
I've run out of time, Vivek Kaju. I appreciate all of you joining us. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is someone who has a unique ability to try and make himself the news, which is good for us in the news business, but perhaps dangerous for the world, particularly in a world where morality is being lost when it comes to international affairs. We'll have much more of that at 10 p.m. tonight, where I'll have guests from Israel, Iran, and the United States. Are we heading for a third world war, as some are suggesting? Let's, though, move on to our other story. India reeling from its deadliest aviation disaster, and the hunt for what caused the ill-fated Air India flight to crash into a medical hostel, killing 270 people. With data from the plane's black box being recovered, the focus has shifted to the recent overhaul of the aircraft's right engine. Air India's operations in particular are under increased scrutiny. More on this in our report.
A crash that continues to haunt the nation a week later. And ripple effects felt across the skies by anyone flying the Maharaja. The spotlight there is well and truly on Air India. Preliminary investigations have ruled out sabotage behind AI-171's crash, with sources saying that had there been a blast before the crash, the sole survivor at seat 11A would not have been able to walk out on his own feet. Instead, as investigators dig into the data of the black box, sources have now told India Today that the focus has shifted to the right engine of the plane that was recently overhauled. India Today has learnt that the right side engine was overhauled and reinstalled as recently as March 2025, just 3 months before the crash. The nearly 12-year-old Boeing 7878 Dreamliner had also passed a comprehensive maintenance check in June 2023. Its next major inspection was scheduled for December this year. Sources also confirmed that in April, Air India raised the insurance cover for the aircraft from 750 crore rupees to 850 crore. Complying with the DGCA order, Air India has so far completed comprehensive security checks of 9 of its 33 Dreamliners, with the rest to follow.
What we've been able to understand is the fact that the right side of the engine was in fact maintained and overhauled as far as March 2025, and the entire aircraft was in fact gone through a significant amount of checks and balances in 2023 June. This is what our sources have been telling me. So the possibility of the right side engine failing could have been really less.
However, in a big relief, Air India's Boeing 787 fleet, the aircraft type involved in the Ahmedabad crash, was given a clean chit by the DGCA. The 787, popularly known as the Dreamliner, is Air India's long-haul workhorse and serves its most profitable international routes. The Air India fleet currently flies 3 types of long-haul aircraft: the 787, the Boeing 777, and the newly inducted Airbus A350. Of these, the 787 accounts for over half of its wide-body aircraft fleet. The increased scrutiny has, however, heavily disrupted Air India's 787's operations, throwing its international schedule into disarray. According to DGCA data, the airline had to cancel 66 Boeing 787 flights between 12th and 17th of June. Meanwhile, former Aviation Minister Praful Patel raised questions on the silence of the Singapore Airlines, highlighting that the Singapore airline was responsible for maintaining most of Air India wide-body aircraft. Patel added that current Air India CEO Campbell Wilson is the nominee of Singapore Airlines. One crash, over 270 plus victims, several disruptions and countless questions. The bottom line remains, Air India will continue to remain under the scanner till the full truth behind what happened with the AI-171 is out in public domain. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The question is Air India's operations. Under the scanner, Jitendra Bhargav now joins me, former Executive Director, Air India. Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar is a former Air India pilot. Appreciate both of you joining us. Jitendra Bhargav, with every passing day, we're seeing questions being raised over Air India's operations, particularly in the last 3 years since Tata's took over. You may have read what Praful Patel, former Civil Aviation Minister, said. He's also questioned Singapore Airlines and their silence, Singapore Airlines being a partner in that original JV that they'd signed with the Tata Group for Vistara. What's your sense? Are we being unfair to Air India in questioning their operations at this stage, or does Air India have much to answer for?
Rajdeep, my view is very clear. We are trying to look at every aspect and say this is a possible fault that may have led to an accident. But let me state it very categorically and emphatically here that there are systems, maintenance system, checks. Now, when somebody says that the engine was overhauled and installed in March, well, there's a system. After the engine is overhauled,
It is put through a test house, various parameters are checked, and only then it is reinstalled on the aircraft. So there is nothing about it, and this is a routine thing, because after 4,000 to 6,000 hours of flying, the engine needs to be refurbished, and it is routinely done. So why make it into an issue, this thing? Coming on to the Singapore Airlines part, will the management sits in Delhi? Whose responsibility is it? We don't go to a shareholder and say, look, it's your responsibility. But if they had a contract for anything of this kind, well, they are answerable. But in my opinion,
in your
very
view,
clear.
from your view as an insider at Air India, as someone who has connections in Air India, are these maintenance concerns serious or not?
Well, Rajdeep, I had written it in 2015 in my book that 2 of the Dreamliners were down for 10 months because of lack of spare parts. DGCA has flagged even last week the shortage of spare parts for Dreamliner aircraft. That's one. But notwithstanding my own statement in my book, I still maintain that I will overlook what I had written in 2015 for the simple reason that in the last 10 years, 1,100 aircraft, multiple airlines have flown this aircraft, and they have had a very clean safety track record, barring the recent one in Ahmedabad. So why must I go back and say, look, this is what was wrong? The maintenance parameters, and even let me explain to you, that even when the plane was to take off at Ahmedabad airport, the aircraft maintenance engineers go through all the tests before the plane is given the sanction, and this licensed engineer, an experienced one, signs a sheet that he has inspected the aircraft thoroughly and cleared it for takeoff. I don't think one can fault it. There are systems in place, and they must have been followed.
You're saying don't...
Somebody is to allege that the engineer did not do it. Engineer did a cursory glance. He did not put it on record. Well, that's a different matter, but there are systems in place to ensure that at every stage, checks are there.
I want to bring in at this moment Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar. You're a former Air India pilot. Our report seems to suggest that there were defects in the right engine, which were corrected only a few months earlier. Are these reports, along with the growing instances of technical snags that are rocking Air India over the last 24, 48 hours, worrying for you? Or do you believe this is simply out of abundant caution or fear after what happened last week?
Sri Rajdeep, whatever has happened on 12th of June was something very unbelievable, one of its kind, horrific, and it has shook the entire world. Dreamliner going just like that with loss of lift. So now for me, it is too premature to say anything about, about the engines, about the technical snags, because everybody, what you see in the social media is trying to get the answer. Now everyone is trying their own theory, and which is, I think it is not correct.
So the right engine being, you're saying the reports of a right engine being replaced a few months ago should not be taken as any evidence of something could be going wrong with the engines of the Dreamliner. Am I correct?
No, that doesn't mean. So the thing is that even the right engine is replaced, what Mr. Bhargav said, even the engine, any engine replaced goes through extensive checks on the ground and everything before it's put to air. Now it is too premature to say whether the right engine was involved in this crash, even if, the right engine was, overhauling something has to do with the crash. Is too premature to say, because the flight data recorder will give out the complete truth, what exactly has happened. So now at this point of time, speculating about that whether it was right engine or left engine, we all knew that the aircraft went down because of the loss of the lift. Because
so how do you explain these numerous flights which have either have not taken off or have been held back because of technical snags, or have had to return to base because of technical snags just in the last 48 hours?
So, the thing is, the technical snag doesn't mean, that the flight cannot fly or something. It's because there is something called, minimum equipment list. The aircraft is fly-worthy with some defects as also. But now, with the extensive checks on DGCA scanner, the regulator may have, or the airlines itself must have said, any kind of, you have even if a navigation system or something is not working, you can take it as a technical snag or some switch or something which is not affecting the aviation or the airworthiness of the aeroplane. So I'm not saying that all technical snags you should come back or something. But yes, it should be taken seriously. If the SOP or the procedure of the airline says that this snag, you need to come back, you need to come back. Secondly, all these disruptions which are taking place for the since all 66 flights cancelled since 12th June is primarily because of the Dreamliners being down for the extensive safety checks, coupled with what has happened over the Iran and the Iraq and the other Middle East airspaces. The aircraft have to divert, do a different routing which involves more time, which involves more fuel, landing at different place, FDTL of the pilots. So now the aircraft is going from here to say London or something, the same aircraft has to come back. Now if that aircraft is down for DGCA checks, naturally the other aircraft will also get affected because this is all interconnected, right? So this is...
I take your point, but Jitendra Bhargav, is there in a sense therefore an element of siege within Air India because of what's happened, a sense that Air India finds itself under increasing pressure and scrutiny, a sense of siege which is leading in many reasons for maybe pilots and indeed the airline now to be extra careful?
Rajdeep, Air India has been under close scrutiny from years and years and years, irrespective of whether it was owned by government or it is owned by Tatas now. But let me explain, and so that we must try and finish this element of fear being created or gets created through an accident, that airline industry has a global character. There are systems in place. Air India has licensed pilots, experienced pilots, licensed engineers. So everything is done in a manner that befits or the guidelines that have been stipulated by Boeing company. So where is the question of doubt? The reality is, yes, an accident has taken place. But as Captain very rightly said, let's wait. Let the investigations get over. It shouldn't be that we have looked at every aspect. This could be a possible factor, this could be a possible factor, and this was. And at the end of it, you find, well, these were not the possible factors. Let the black box give clue, give understanding of what it is. Let the experienced people who are decoding the black box juxtapose all those kind of things, work it on a simulator, work on everything, and say, well, this is the reason why this plane crashed. Dreamliner had a terrific safety track record.
So in your view, we should not doubt whether Air India is being professionally run or not, whether pilots are overstressed, whether Tata's has bitten off more than they can chew.
Rajdeep, I will only say one thing. Yes, Air India has been in the news for the wrong reasons on very many safety or service standards on a flight. But take, for example, the cancellations that have taken place in the last few days and made big news. 66 flights have got cancelled, etc. Once DGCA says that you need stringent checks on Dreamliners, Air India is obligated to provide this aircraft for checks. Now, you can't be flying all over the world and say, well, these safety checks which have been necessitated because of an air crash can take up to a month. Come next week, after all these checks, in fact, all these Dreamliners have been subjected to checks by now, and they will get back to normalcy. But what are we doing is mounting pressure on Air India management, which at this juncture is saddled with just too many issues, right from the time the accident took place, families of the victims getting on, because Air India, as the airline concerned, is involved with every aspect. We can't say the Gujarat government is doing this government is doing this is DGCA's function, when Air India is at the center of everything that has got to do with this accident and thereafter.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Jitendra Bhargava and Captain Bhatnagar, appreciate both of you joining me here on the show tonight. Thank you very much. Just India Today's fact check before I go today. Claim was that IDF soldiers abandoned their posts amidst Iranian strike, that Israeli defense forces abandoned their posts. The fact is, this 2024 video shows Israeli police dispersing protesters. There is no question of the Israeli forces having abandoned their post, as has been claimed on social media. Okay, I'm going to be back at 10 p.m. with more, but before that, the lone survivor of last week's Air India plane crash laid his brother to rest in Diu. Vishwas Kumar bid an emotional goodbye to his brother Ajay, who was also on the ill-fated flight but couldn't survive the tragedy. Our thoughts and prayers once again with the victims of AI 171.